Democrats are about to spend the next 12 months and many squillions of dollars trying to convince voters to give them the majority. But here's the real question. What would they do with it if they got it? That's actually what we're going to dig into today. What would America look like? I can't even say this sentence. What would America look like with Democrats back in charge of one or both chambers? Just manifest it. What big ideas should define that vision, and how do you sell that vision to a country that is exhausted and divided and maybe just a little cynical about Washington? So joining me to tackle all of that are Senator Brian Schatz of Hawaii, down there. Senator Ruben Gallego of Arizona, next to me. And the inimitable Congresswoman Pramila Jayapal of Washington. So before we get to the sort of meat of the issue, as a matter of housekeeping, I have to bring up sort of where we sit right now. And the two senators on the panel, I would ask you, there has been some renewed optimism and enthusiasm in the Democratic Party because of the victories sizable this week. And it has led some people to say, maybe we shouldn't just set our sights on the House turning blue in 2026. Maybe we should think about the Senate turning blue. And I ask you, as creatures of the upper chamber, is that misplaced optimism? Should Democrats try and envision a near-term future where the Senate falls back into Democratic control? Brian, why don't you start?
First of all, thank you for having me. Very exciting. I can't see any of you, but it sounds very loud. And so, yeah, I think it is reasonable to have optimism. And here's the way I would look at it. I mean, I could take you through all the races, but that's not the purpose of this panel. We have, statistically speaking, we have roughly the same chance of taking the Senate that we did before John Ossoff and Raphael Warnock gave us the majority in the Senate. So nobody knows what's going to happen, but I think Tuesday just increased the likelihood that we're going to be able to recruit excellent candidates. We already have 2 seats that I think we are actually favored to win. That obviously doesn't get us all the way to a majority, but we just are going to need 1 or 2 more after Maine. We got to win Maine. We got to win North Carolina. After that, there are multiple pathways, and I wouldn't have said that 3 months ago. I would have said there's still a chance, but I wouldn't have said multiple pathways, because we have got some excellent candidates already, and we've also got a couple of candidates that I think are going to announce that can really do this for us.
Close the deal. Okay, Senator Gallego, how are you thinking about the Senate?
I've always thought about we have no choice. Democrats have to win. We have to keep winning because we're about to hit some really hard periods, right? What does that look like? Well, in about 2033, 2034, Social Security is not going to pay 100% of its benefit, right? If you don't have a Democratic-held Senate, White House, and House, you're going to see these Republicans screw Social Security, right? We have Medicare that is also going to start running out. What do you think they're going to do if we don't have control of all 3? They will find a way to screw Medicare. This is what they've been trying to do forever. They would love nothing more to be able to have it, and if they have the opportunity, they will do it, right? So we have no choice but to put some Senate seats on the board that maybe we're not even close to, or we hadn't even thought about. But I do see some inklings of hope, not just in some places. Like in Iowa, man, if you go out to Iowa and talk to some of these voters who've been voting Republican for a while, they are ticked. They're ticked about the economy. They're ticked about the fact that they have no markets to sell their stuff. They're ticked about healthcare being slashed in these rural areas. You have some great candidates running. But we have to figure out how to start winning in places that we aren't normally winning, because that's how you end up governing. And we have to figure out how to govern, which is, I guess, is what we're all here talking about.
Oh, yeah.
That's just, we'll go into that later then.
Congresswoman Jayapal, the House seems distinctly within grasp, and we know that because Donald Trump is trying to use every lever at his disposal to ensure that Democrats don't get a majority, some of them, I would argue, undemocratic. We look at what Speaker Johnson is doing, refusing to seat Adelita Grijalva, which also seems like something that is unconstitutional. I don't know. And I guess when you think about a Democratic majority in 2026 in the House, are you worried that Republicans may decide to just not hand the gavel over? I mean, I feel like we are now being forced to reckon with ideas that previously seemed unthinkable, right? Like, if it's a narrow majority, what says that Speaker Johnson just doesn't decide not to seat the people that won?
Yeah, I mean, hi, everybody. It's good to be here. Look, I think we shouldn't take anything off the table. We all lived through January 6th. We know what happened there. We've been living through the last, 9 months and seeing things that we thought were untenable, that we would never see, including incredible violence towards our people in cities across this country in different ways, violence on healthcare, violence on immigration, violence in so many places. And so I don't think that we should go into something scared, but I think we should be prepared. And the best way to be prepared is to make sure we are doing the work on the ground. And just like Ruben said, we've got incredible candidates in multiple places across the country. We just endorsed an incredible young woman named Afton Bain in Tennessee. And I think it's a special election. And I think we have a chance. Yes, it's a Trump plus 20 district. But you know what? After what happened on Tuesday night, and in a special, I think we have to show power and hope to win, but show power, because that's how you build for the next one. But also, I'm going to Iowa and Nebraska next week. We've got incredible candidates there, including John Kavanaugh, who we endorsed in Nebraska. So I think that this is the work that we have to do, and it is absolutely illegal, undemocratic, unconstitutional to gerrymander districts, but it's all Donald Trump knows how to do, is to cheat, to win. And so we've got to make sure that we are preparing, and I think what California did with Prop 50 was incredibly important because it just shows we're not going to take a butter knife to a gunfight, even though I speak from nonviolence. But it really shows that we're going to force them to, we're going to play on the same playing field. And when we get power back, we got to make it all fair again, right? We have to figure out how to have real voting rights that people can rely on, no gerrymandered districts, all those things we've got to do. But right now, we got to fight them on the same battlefield, and we've got to make sure that we are doing the work in every place. And I think the House, we feel like there's a real possibility of doing that. And certainly looking at Tuesday night, thank you, everybody, for Tuesday night. I think that just gives us, it's like the first time we were saying to somebody, it's like the first time we've kind of felt a little bit of joy in our step when we answer the question, how are you doing? Because usually we say, good, how are you doing? Like, can we move on from that question? But now we're like, good, I'm good, because of how people took power into their own hands at the voting box.
Okay, I think, to some degree this should answer itself, but there are plenty of people in this country who think of power and they think of it almost uniformly as being held in the executive branch, which is understandable seeing as we have an autocrat in power. But the balance of power in the legislative branch really truly matters. So, Senator Schatz, if you could, do you have a 30-second sales pitch to why a Democratic majority in the Senate matters?
The courts. And more broadly, to constrain Trump, and more broadly, if we do take power, to actually effectuate a bunch of policy, which I know is eventually going to be the topic of this conversation. But to the extent that we've been able to constrain Donald Trump's lawlessness, it has been through the federal court system. Yesterday's ruling in Chicago was someone we confirmed. All of these decisions that have been made that have been, compelling this administration to release the SNAP money, that have constrained the unlawful deployment of troops and National Guards folks to American cities. All of that is because of judges that we churned through. And I get that that is not my most enjoyable part of the job, where we're just sort of sitting in post-cloture time and just voting aye. But now that body of work is really some of the best infrastructure of democracy. So courts. And by the way, if we do not take the Senate, I am very certain that we will see an Alito and a Thomas retirement, and some Mike Lee staffer who's 32 ending up on the SCOTUS for a full generation.
Yeah.
I'm not kidding.
Well, I think you could see those retirements maybe at the end of this term, even before there's a chance for voters to decide. But then, of course, you could follow the Mitch McConnell playbook and say, we got to wait till there's an election. Just kidding. I mean, we're not. Senator Gallego, I wonder, if you're making the pitch to working class voters in Arizona, are you using the courts argument? Use something else. What's the third? What's the 30? What's your elevator pitch for why Senate majority matters?
Because this administration, the Republicans, are making you sicker and poorer. And everything they're doing, they're just making you sicker and poorer. Inflation's up, you're poorer. Medicaid's being cut, you're sicker. ACA extension's going to cut off, 24 million people from affordable health insurance. 4 million Americans are going to lose health insurance if we don't do the ACA extension. Sicker. You keep going on, up and down, sicker and poorer, making sicker and sicker poor, right? That's what they're doing. What we're going to do, we're going to make you healthier and wealthier. Very simple. And then just go right into the policy positions, what that is. Honestly, by the way, courts do matter. Don't get me wrong.
Different strokes for different folks.
But let's win and then do that, right?
Hawaii is a different state. Congresswoman Jayapal, the same question, but for a House majority, why does it matter?
Yeah, it's similar to Ruben's. It's all about affordability. You got to be able to live. And people in this country, it is rigged for billionaires, for the wealthiest people at the top, and 80% of people can't put food on the table, can't get health insurance, can't afford their housing, can't afford their child care. This is an administration that rigs things for the billionaire buddies. And we have to work for the people.
I'm impressed that they really were like 30-second pitches. That was just kind of a framing mechanism.
We care about the courts, too.
Yeah.
I mean, we really care about the courts.
Yeah, the senator's really tight.
Still have house mentality.
I guess let's just get to the getting. Okay, let's assume you get the majority. And I'll ask each one of you to weigh on to this. What is the first piece of business you tackle and why? Senator Schatz, I'd start with you.
Well, I think the first business is the business in front of us, which is the extension of the ACA tax credits. And if they don't do that, that would be my first piece of business. We're either going to succeed or not succeed in the next, whatever it is, 2 months on this question of the ACA subsidies. And, I know people personally who are facing a $1,000, $1,200, $1,400 monthly increase, and they just literally can't do that. So that's the fight in front of us. And whether or not Trump sees that it is in his interest to solve this problem, I don't know. But if we are unable to solve this problem, we have to have a mechanism to have this healthcare fight live inside, but also outside of the context of a government shutdown, because that is an animating force, because it's become a bit of a proxy for everything. It is the healthcare fight, but the reason that people are now starting to trust us on the question of cost is that we're out there fighting on the question of cost. So It goes to food, it goes to electricity, it goes to electronics, it goes to toys, it goes to building materials, it goes to labor. Everything is getting more expensive, and that is not some fiscal or monetary policy thing. That is an intentional strategy of the Trump administration, which is to turn the dial up, and the basic premise is that regular people have it too easy, and we need to create a little scarcity. That is their actual view.
Can I ask a follow-up, just because we are obviously in the middle of a government shutdown? Thank you, John Thune, for not scheduling a vote right now so that we could have you guys here. It's the only thing I'll thank him for. Yeah, right. Okay. But if a deal is not made on federal subsidies, which I hope is not the thing that comes to pass, do you think that will be a reason why the Senate turns blue if it does turn blue in November?
I don't want to go that far, because we're in the middle of this fight because we're fighting for these 24 million people. And I don't want to contemplate what happens if we fail to do that. I think we have to be in this fight. I think we have to see it through. I think the Tuesday election has given some Republicans pause about the question of the ACA subsidies. I do think that, A, they thought we were going to cave immediately. B, they kind of thought this was a talking point. They thought that we were cooking up the ACA increases, and now an increasing number of them, House and Senate, I think is true, on the Republican side, are starting to kind of noodle around on we kind of thought you were just like, trying to inflame things, but now my constituents are getting their letter. So this thing is real, and I think we do have a pathway to solve it. Obviously, it is just a truism in politics, which is you try to win the policy fight, and then if you don't win the policy fight, you turn it into an electoral issue so you can win it in the next round. But I don't want to lose this policy
fine.
fight.
We'll start with and Godspeed on that policy
fair
fight. Congresswoman Jayapal, what's the first order of business the House should take up should Hakeem Jeffries get the gavel, assuming it's...
Well, he is going to get the gavel, and we are going to make him Speaker of the House. There's two scenarios here. One is the House gets a majority.
Let's just say you have the House and Senate.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Great. I love that. So if we have the House and the Senate, I think about this in three ways. One, we have to deliver on affordability. And to me, that is childcare, it's housing, and it's healthcare. Those three things. And we would have done two of them, back when you and I were talking about this on MSNBC
back in the
a lot.
before times.
Yes, in those days. But those three things we've got to deliver on. There's a second bucket, which is around structural reforms. We've got to fix the Voting Rights Act. We have to. We have to. We have to deal in some way with the money in politics. And to Brian's point, we also have to deal with the Supreme Court. And so I think those three things, and I would put in immigration reform in here, could be either in the first or in the second, but we need to stop allowing people to use immigrants against us. And we need to stand up for immigrants across this country. And then the third is one I really have been struggling with, but I think we have to do it. It's something around the accountability of the pain and the lawlessness of this administration. And I don't have the answer yet around what these things are, but there's a bucket here. And it does involve accountability around January 6th for sure. But it also, we've been a country that I think a lot of us, me included, thought had a lot more in place to stop a lawless authoritarian. And what I've realized is we have a lot more norms and a lot fewer actual tools. And so we've been doing a lot of thinking in the House with Jamie Raskin and others on the Judiciary Committee about what are the structural change, what are the changes we need to make so that we can get that kind of accountability? And then what is the process we have to go through for the country to heal and for us to actually be able to come together, but for people who have been wronged to really feel like we're addressing that. So that's much more complicated. The first two I feel like I'm pretty clear, but...
I want to... It was a kind of like an Easter egg in there when you said we need to do something about the Supreme Court. Does that mean add some seats?
I mean, in my view, yes. But also... That is not a crazy liberal idea that's unprecedented. It's been done numerous times in the country's history where we've expanded the court to match the expansion of the population. But also, Elizabeth Warren and I have an Ethics and Accountability Act for the Supreme Court. Why is it that the highest court in the land does not have any kind of an enforceable ethics standard? And so you can have a bunch of people just paying for RVs and luxury vacations and all kinds of things, and then going and arguing cases before the Supreme Court, and it is so obviously corrupt. And when that corruption shows through to the people, it is a very dangerous time if people lose faith in the highest court in the land, and that's happening right now. So under John Roberts' watch. So I think we've got to fix that, and we've got to make sure that we have real accountability and real ethics standards for people that are going to be the ultimate judge of the law of the land in this country for life.
Senator Gallego?
Well, you should always dance with the person who brings you to the dance, right? What's going to bring us to victory in the Senate and the House is going to be cost of living and just in general people's feeling of inability to actually feel comfortable with what they're making. And I think what we do first is going to brand the Democrats going also into 2028. And everything they're saying is very important. Don't get me wrong. Totally agree with that. We should do all that. But I think the first thing we should do is pass a... They know me. They've known me for a while.
Including healthcare, housing, and childcare.
Yeah,
really important.
It's all important.
All that shit. Anyway, also.
All the shit. But I think actually we should do something very basic. We should pass a minimum wage increase to $20 an hour. And we should, and one bill, $20 an hour, and it should be pegged to growth with inflation, so we never find ourselves in a situation right now where working class people are basically doing poverty wages, right? And that's when we start seeing those voters, those working class voters that we lost, like, oh, that's the Democrats. That's who I remember. And then watch the Republicans argue against that. Then watch this president veto it or not veto it, and then have them get into an internal fight. But then we're known as the people that took care of working class people and having higher wages. And then it's easier for us then to roll into affordable housing, into healthcare, everything else like that. But let's hit this the right tone, the right way to make sure that it really sets us up for success going forward.
Just to point out, we did pass a $15 minimum wage back in 2012 in city of Seattle, highest minimum wage in the country. We were the first state in the country in Washington to index minimum wage to inflation, and it's why Washington State keeps winning. To Ruben's point, it's why Washington State keeps winning, and the only state that didn't go red this last election.
And why you keep winning.
That too.
This episode is brought to you by Z-Biotics Pre-Alcohol. Between bowl games, cold beers by the bonfire, and whiskey with the family after Thanksgiving dinner, this time of year is packed with festivities. Here is how we stay productive for the next day. It is called Z-Biotics Pre-Alcohol Probiotic. It's the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. It was invented by PhD scientists to tackle rough mornings after drinking. Here's how it works. When you drink, alcohol gets converted into a toxic byproduct in the gut. It's a buildup of this byproduct and not dehydration that is to blame for rough days after drinking. Pre-alcohol produces an enzyme to break this byproduct down. Just remember to make pre-alcohol your first drink of the night. Drink responsibly, and you'll feel your best tomorrow. The Z-Biotics was flowing at CrookedCon.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody was taking Z-Biotics. We were all saved by Z-Biotics. I literally will not have a drink without it. I cannot recommend it enough, especially as we get to the holidays. Just buy a pack. Buy one pack. What's the worst that can happen? I promise you it will help you. Make the most of every toast, tailgate, and touchdown this holiday season. Just don't forget to bring pre-alcohol along for the ride. Go to zbiotics.com/crooked to learn more and get 15% off your first order when you use Crooked at checkout. Z-Biotics is backed with a 100% money-back guarantee, so if you're unsatisfied for any reason, they'll refund your money, no questions asked. Remember, head to zbiotics.com/crooked. Use the code CROOKED at checkout for 15% off.
This episode is brought to you by Aura Frames. Do you have a hilarious bad gifting story that still haunts you to this day? Have you ever regifted something and then got caught? Tommy, have you ever done a regift?
I don't think I've ever gotten busted on a regift. I've definitely done the oh my God, I just completely forgot to get a thing for mom and it's Christmas morning and I feel like the worst son in the world kind of thing.
Someone got me as a gift, a thank you gift, a collection of Woody Allen DVDs years ago.
Ooh.
And I remember being like, oh, this is, I thoughtful to get me something. You really didn't have to. Also, I just, you should just Google about it.
Yeah, Google him.
Maybe not the best story for an Aura Frames ad, but that's what happened. Every frame from Aura comes packaged in a premium gift box with no price tag, so there's no gift wrapping necessary. If you want to personalize your gift, you can add a message before it arrives. You can upload unlimited photos and video to your frame for free. Just download the Aura app and connect to Wi-Fi. It only takes about 2 minutes to set up a frame. Using the Aura app, the app allows you to share photos and videos effortlessly at any time, straight from your phone. You can't wrap togetherness, but you can frame it. An Aura frame is such a great gift for family members. You can load it up with nice family pictures and memories, then send it to somebody, and then they can put it out and they can have a really kind of sweet thing all the time, you know? For a limited time, visit auraframes.com and get $45 off Aura's best-selling Carver matte frames, named #1 by Wirecutter by using code CROOKED at checkout. That's AURA frames.com, promo code CROOKED. This exclusive Black Friday Cyber Monday deal is the best of the year, so order now before it ends. Support the show by mentioning us at checkout. Terms and conditions apply.
This episode is brought to you by Incogni. We live in a world where personal information is more accessible than ever, sometimes a little too accessible. Data brokers collect and sell your private details, your name, home address, phone number, even your browsing habits without you ever knowing. That's where Incogni comes in. It works behind the scenes to remove your data from these databases, reducing your exposure to marketers, scammers, and anyone else who might use it without your consent. Your privacy should be yours to control. Take back your information with Incogni today. Think of Incogni as your personal digital cleanup crew, sweeping your data off the internet while you sit back and scroll through the memes. All you need to do is sign up, give them permission to act on your behalf, and they go out and demand that data brokers delete your personal info. Incogni will automatically and continually monitor your data privacy without you ever having to lift a finger. Incogni has also launched a new feature called Custom Data Removals, available in their unlimited plan. It allows you to send in any link from any site that exposes your data, and then Incogni's privacy professionals will go after it. No bots, no forums, just real people making your data disappear. This is especially useful for removing records from places like legal databases or people search engines that don't play nice with traditional opt-outs. Right now, you can get 60% off their annual plans by heading to incogni.com/PSA and use the code PSA at checkout. It's also completely risk-free. Incogni offers a 30-day money-back guarantee if you're not satisfied with them removing your personal information off the internet. Live free from dangerous spam by using Incogni. That's incogni.com/PSA. Code PSA for 60% off their annual plans.
What, and I'll ask all of you guys this, what is the biggest threat to being able to enact that agenda? And it doesn't have to be Trump. I mean, I just wonder if you think there are structural issues, if you want to talk about the filibuster.
The filibuster.
I got this. What's that?
I mean, my one answer, the filibuster.
The filibuster.
Well, okay, let's talk about that. Let's talk about that. Are we reaching the point now where it's time to get rid of it?
It already is gone. So, hello, is this on?
It's on.
It's on? All right. It's already gone. The Republicans have already changed the filibuster rules twice since I've been there. It's convenient. Like, and for those who speak Spanish, cuando le conviene, that's when they use the excuse, like, oh, now they want the filibuster. No, they want the filibuster. Like, they just changed how we do nominations, how we do, now, I think last week we voted for like 30 nominees and one vote. So they've done this already, right? It's just that we end up the ones that screw ourselves, right? Why haven't we gotten immigration reform? Because we used to have 2 or 3 Dem senators that said, I'm not going to join you. Why didn't we get, more effective things done last time? Because Cinnamon Manchin would not, overlook some of the, would work with the Republicans to stop things, such as, by the way, anti-gerrymandering legislation when we tried to pass that last cycle. So it's all bullshit to begin with. And the other thing is, why don't we have a living wage? Because it's still pegged at $7.25 federally because of the filibuster. Now, when I go and talk to a person and I say, like, why haven't you done anything about the minimum wage? I say, well, there's this filibuster. It's not really in the Constitution. It's actually a rule of the Senate. Blah, blah. Do you think they give a fuck about that? They don't. And we look so ineffectual all the time on every issue. So, and you're going to hear the other side. Well, what happens when they take over? Well, yeah. I believe in the battle of ideas. If we can effectively push our programs, our ideas, our policies to actually take care of people, we'll always win the battle of ideas.
Well, and also, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, but my friend Chris Hayes and I were talking about this on my podcast, Runaway Country on Crooked Media, and he was making the point that, like, part of the reason it's so easy for these Trump Republicans in the Senate to capitulate to Trump and pledge fealty is because they don't actually have to take a vote on any of this stuff, right? And, like, if you actually made them put their money where their mouths are because, it's simple majority vote, like, maybe you'd have more resistance. I don't know. Maybe that's optimistic thinking, but...
No, I mean, I think that, we know all the stuff about the filibuster and how it's a legacy of Jim Crow. Why have they kept it in place theoretically? Because what Ruben said is right. They've taken it away for the budget, right? They can pass their tax breaks. They can do their Supreme Court nominations, whatever. They've done it already. But it benefits them. That's the reason they're keeping it. What I don't understand is why we keep it. Because it doesn't benefit us at all, and it literally gives...
doesn't benefit working class America.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
It doesn't
They're
benefit.
not Democrats, but
it doesn't benefit the people that we are trying to serve. By the way, it doesn't benefit the people they are trying to serve either, because they have states that passed a $15 minimum wage and voted for Donald Trump. So minimum wage, affordable child care, housing, these are not Republican or Democratic issues. They are issues across the country. People are suffering. That's why income inequality is so high. That's why you can use all kinds of wedges to divide people, because they can't put food on their table. So I do think that we have to just wake up and realize that they've already gotten rid of it for the things that they want, and they've kept it so that they can continue to gerrymander, not pass voting rights, not pass minimum wage, not pass the things that benefit their billionaire buddies. And we should be really clear that that should be the first thing we get done, because otherwise we're going to be having the same freaking policy or sort of esoteric discussions about how some unelected parliamentarian refused to agree to allow us to put the minimum wage into a reconciliation bill. What part of that does anyone in America understand? They want to know, did you increase the minimum wage or did you not? And if we are able to pass those things, that is actually the only thing that saves our democracy, because people will start to feel the effects of it on day one. And that will mean they have faith again in government, that we don't say we're going to fight for something and then we give them a bunch of process arguments about why we can't do it. That's what failed process votes are about. It's like, well, really sorry, can't do it. No, we got to deliver on the stuff, and if there are structural barriers that stop us, we need to actually look at them, because they're only benefiting the wealthiest in this country, and they're allowing 80% of this country to not be able to afford to live. And that's not the America that we believe in.
Senator Schatz, are you going to be the voice of reason advocating for the survival of the filibuster?
The voice of reason. I don't know. No, look, I think I'll just add one thing in addition to, I agree with you that what we need to do is focus on things that people understand. And then as a kind of side effect of that, we say there was an impediment and we got through it. Whether that impediment was an individual senator who was resistant or a Senate rule or procedure, like, no one's interested in what the impediment was. They're interested in us delivering. I will say one other thing where we could stumble is if we get a little too precious in our first couple of months about who's kind of first in line and what goes in the package. And some of the kind of machinations around Build Back Better was exactly that. Like, we tried to accomplish so much that it's like cooking, like, a lot of ingredients are good. Not all of the ingredients are good in the same dish. And so we're going to have to be pretty disciplined. And I love Ruben's sort of approach, which is like, we need to pick the most explainable, most palpable things on the front end. And all of those kind of structural reforms as it relates to the bones of democracy are just as important, but they may not be first out of the gate because they're not as resonant, frankly, as the cost of living. The reason people are pissed, the reason we lost last year and the reason we won on Tuesday is the same reason. Everything's too expensive and people are furious about it. And that's what we need to focus on.
What he said, but prettier. Yeah. What I said, but he said it prettier.
I was like, oh, you're going to say it prettier.
One reason that everything got put into that is, again, procedural, right? We had this like weird thing called reconciliation that nobody understood, but it was like the one way that we could get certain things done with 50 votes, which was the only way we could accomplish. And now this isn't, so I think that it goes back to why all of us said get rid of the filibuster. Because we can't deliver on the rest of the agenda if we don't do that.
Yeah, but just like, I would say the one thing, like, because I was in the House and I remember with the Build Back Better agenda, I'm like, why are we doing this so complicated? It's this plus this, like, can we just give people money? Like, that's what Trump did. It's like, oh yeah, man, here's $1,000. Here's a Trump check. Like, okay, people are hurting right now. Like, why don't we just extend the child tax credit, for another 2 years, and then because we had a couple cracks at reconciliation. Right? Instead, we did it all on like one thing. We should have just done quickly. Again, my little Marine brain works from A to B, which is like, first thing do something that's going to be very popular, and then work on all the other nerdy shit.
But one thing about that, it has to be popular for everybody.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly, yeah.
one thing about our definitions of like who qualifies for certain things, it's all by 400% of the poverty limit,
Yeah,
right? And so if we say universal childcare, right, where it's for everybody, because there are people who are just over the line. So I do think we got to think about these universal programs versus ones that just lift up people below a certain poverty line.
I mean, I agree. I absolutely agree. It's also easier to administer, and also, like, you know, depending where you are, a family making $100,000 is barely making it nowadays.
Yeah.
Families
That's
making
minimum wage in Seattle.
$80,000, at least in Arizona. A family of three making $80,000 is middle class, but they're barely making it. So, like, I do think that there is the universal programs that actually help people work out the best.
Help me understand. I mean, there seems to be some unanimity on the question of affordability being a priority. Obviously, you guys each have separate recommendations. Just in terms of the dynamics inside the Senate and the House, in terms of Democrats actually having their shit together and listening and speaking with one voice. Right now, it's easier. You're the minority party, and there's a despot in the White House, and it's just a sort of reactionary stance in a lot of ways. But if it does come back where you're holding the gavel, where you guys are running the show, do you think things have changed enough that Democrats can operate with sort of more nimbly and more effectively with the power that they're given compared to the last time around? I mean, what are the dynamics like? You guys, I'll start with the senators because you're in a big fight right now. And there's been a little reporting this week about, you know, some factions splitting off. Thus far, we've presented mostly a united front to the public, but do you feel like the Democratic caucus is, I guess, more unified, more together, more cohesive, and can stay that way if you got power back again? And please answer honestly.
No, I think. Go ahead, Ruben. Well, so the answer is yes. We are. I think we're totally in alignment about affordability, and I think there is a creeping realization of the kind of that part of the problem of the Biden accomplishments was its complexity and difficulty in implementation. And that created like multiple political problems because people didn't feel anything. And some of it wasn't just a matter of it being delayed implementation. Some of it, frankly, never ended up happening.
Yeah.
And so I was kind of, because I felt that universal basic income, for instance, was like being proposed by a bunch of tech titans who wanted an excuse to eviscerate employment and just say, we should just do this thing because that way I can wave away this problem. So I was very resistant to UBI, but the thing that changed my mind was both the kind of failure of implementation of at least part of ARP and part of IRA and part of all those things just kind of didn't happen fast enough, but also back home during COVID, we set up a bunch of programs, but everyone I ran into was like, it was the checks, man. It was the cash money.
Yeah.
And so I'm not saying that's the only solution, but that is an example of like specificity, palpability, speed. And so it is true that we care about institutions and norms and laws and all that stuff. We really do care about that. But if we make an argument in this election cycle or any election cycle in the next 10 years that we are going to restore the status quo, we are going to get smoked again and again and again. And so when we do progressive policy, we should err on the side of no new programs. No new programs, nothing that has to go through the Administrative Procedures Act, all self-executing, all right away you feel it.
And I guess just like I also think like there used to be this feeling, I think, that you're insulated as a senator, right? Because we're off every 6 years. It's very hard to knock one of us off. I think the Democratic... I guess I did. I forgot about that. But they're humble brag. Not humble, actually. It is a brag. But I think there is a real understanding that Democrats and our supporters, because there's independent support Democrats, want to see results, and they're just not going to be happy with somebody with the D and nothing happens. And that you're going to have problems going and winning a primary or even winning in general if you don't seem like you're actually effectively doing something to make people's lives better. And I think that would put a lot of pressure on us as a caucus to make sure that we're actually doing the things my friend Brian is talking about.
I should note that Nancy Pelosi has decided that she is stepping down, retiring after many years leading the House. And I wonder, as you think about the House as a sort of cohesive organism with regards to the Democrats, like, first of all, just how instrumental it was to have someone like that in leadership. I mean, the ACA wouldn't have been passed without Nancy Pelosi, right? And just someone who's been managing a very ideologically diverse coalition on the left, and sort of like the perils that lay ahead for the House. Because all respect to the Senate, you guys are the ones most likely to return to power in 2026, right? So, like, what does that mean for the current House dynamics and a new generation of leadership?
Well, she is a remarkable leader. Like, I just think she's an incredible organizer. She is, she understands power in a way that her experience, and she served a long time too, right? So she knows all the procedures. She's been through this before, and so I think she was, and she gets how to get people on board. As somebody who has gone through that when I didn't fall in line. So I say it with tremendous affection, gratitude, and respect, because I respect an organizer who knows how to get things done, and that is what she is. And I think that, a lot of times, like, we're very proud, and you served in the House too, right? No. Okay, so Ruben knows this.
I lost my House race.
We like to, we are closest to the people. It's called the People's House. We're very proud of that because we have to run every 2 years. And so I think we're constantly much more in tune in some ways with what the today problem is. And I really do think that we've been able to do amazing things in the House under Pelosi's leadership. It will be so under the next speaker's leadership as well. The problem has been that everything, forgive me, colleagues, the Senate, the august Senate, where all good things go to die.
Yeah.
So that's what we have to change, and I think that's what we're all saying is things are getting blocked, and people don't care what the reason is. You have to be able to deliver, and it's not enough just to say, "Hey, I'm fighting hard for you." No, what are you delivering for us? And the other thing I want to say, just about, because I think it's important to learn from the lessons. Yes, we need to have simple programs, all of those things. But listen, we took the easy way out. We went for low-hanging infrastructure bill. We should never have divorced it from the housing, childcare, the rest of it. And I'm not trying to relive things, but I'm just saying we have to be willing to take some big risks and do some big things. Because, yes, people care about roads and bridges, but you know what? My union members can't get out to build them because they can't get childcare. So we've got to we need to think about what people need to live in a different way. And I think that's why it's so important. It was called soft infrastructure, hard infrastructure, all this stuff. We just need to think about what's the bills you got to pay at the end of the day. And how do we make those bills less? And what programs can we put in place right away? Let's not spend a year and a half to deliver the stuff that had the prescription drug pricing, the housing, all of those things in it. That didn't get done until 2 years into the term. What would have happened if we delivered? And then the prescription drug price stuff didn't even go into effect until the new administration, for the most part. Some important things before that. So let's just be strategic about what we do first. Do hard things. We can do hard things. And let's make sure that they are getting done quickly.
Yeah, I mean, I guess one of the other things I like to point out is that let's not lie to ourselves. Because the big lie around infrastructure is like, this is really going to get people jazzed. Yeah. And I remember talking to the Biden people and talking to other Democrats, like, no, it's not. It's not going to fucking,
we all
not going to do it. It's like, it's not going to get people excited because it's going to take forever to get built. No one's really going to know who did it. But it's like, it's not, I'm sure you think that's the case, but lying to yourself does not mean that lie is actually going to come true, right? But we kept saying it. They kept saying it. I'm like, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. And
over and over and over.
And we all knew it. And we all said, like, and what do we all do? We're like, well, I guess we're doing infrastructure. so,
It's the easiest thing to get done.
Right.
Believe me.
And so,
Just trust us. We know better in the Senate.
Yeah.
We'll send it over to you and jam you so that you have to send it back to us.
It was just really crazy. Like we just can't lie to ourselves.
Fucking bridges.
Just don't lie. We when we're in, not lie to ourselves to believe that's actually going to effectively actually change the politics. It was crazy to see.
And it was our entire caucus. It wasn't just progressives. It was across the board.
Like everybody thought it was a bad idea.
We hung together. I mean, we really did. We did incredible work, you know. And I always try to remind people, it wasn't the majority of the Democratic caucus, 99% of us, wanted to get that passed, and we let 2 people block us. And that was a huge mistake. And now we have Ruben Gallego in the Arizona State Arizona Senate.
This episode is brought to you by AG1. The holidays are upon us. I know that because everybody at the Starbucks this morning was in a red, they got the red jumper, red apron there.
Oh, yeah.
That's how you know it's holiday time.
Do you say your name was Santa just to own them?
I said my name is Hanukkah Harry. You got to stay 1 scoop ahead during the holidays because you're going to be eating poorly and sleeping poorly and staying up late trying to catch an immigrant from the North Pole. Crowded airports, it's darkness, holiday meals, a lot of stress. That's why you need AG1's antioxidants, probiotics, functional mushrooms, superfoods, vitamins, micronutrients, enzymes. You got to have those. It's great to start your day with something healthy, like a smoothie with fruit and vegetables and protein and greens. And AG1's a great way to help you do that. It's true all the time, but especially during the holidays. So head to drinkag1.com/crooked to get a free welcome kit with an AG1 flavor sampler and a bottle of vitamin D3 plus K2 when you first subscribe. That's drinkag1.com/crooked.
This episode is brought to you by Hims. According to the National Institutes of Health, it's hard out there for a man. Or apparently not that hard. For 30 million men in the U.S. experiencing ED. It's more common than a bad night's sleep. The good news, Hims makes getting access to treatment simple so you could feel like yourself again.
Either try this or join ICE.
Without the stress or awkwardness. Through Hims, you can access personalized prescription treatment options for ED like hard mints and Sex RX plus Climax Control if prescribed. Hims offers access to ED treatment options ranging from trusted generics that cost 95% less than brand names to hard mints if prescribed. You shouldn't have to go out of your way to feel like yourself. Hims brings expert care straight to you with 100% online access to personalized treatment plans that put your goals first. This isn't one-size-fits-all care that forgets you in the waiting room. It's your health and your goals put first, with real medical providers making sure you get what you need to get results. Think of Hims as your digital front door that gets you back to your old self with simple 100% online access to trusted treatments for ED and more, all in one place. To get simple online access to personalized, affordable care for ED, weight loss, and more, visit hims.com/crooked. That's hims.com/crooked for your free online visit. Hims.com/crooked. Actual price will depend on product and subscription plan. Featured products include compounded drug products, which the FDA does not approve or verify for safety, effectiveness, or quality. Prescription required. See website for details, restrictions, and important safety information.
I think I know the answer to this, but is there an issue that you definitely do not think you should start with? I feel like you've said infrastructure is not where you want to start if you get power back, but Senator Schatz, you've been quiet.
This might be mildly unpopular. I'm not sure. But I actually think all this democracy reform stuff is not your lead argument. And I think that that doesn't mean that it's not essential. And as I rack and stack, there's things in your life that are the most important thing. That doesn't mean it's the thing you're doing this morning. And I think the sequencing very much matters. And people are listening for cues and clues as to whether this Democratic Party gets it. And if the message in the midterms is like, everything's too fucking expensive, will you please fix this? And then we start talking about gerrymandering and all the rest of it, like, it's really essential. I care very deeply about it. And, my buddy, the former governor of Hawaii, who appointed me to the Senate, used to say, people vote for you for their reasons, not yours. And so the reason we are going to win next year and 3 years from now is because Donald Trump has made everything more expensive on purpose, and we have to be laser focused on reversing that. We got a follow up.
I was going to say, isn't it just like a senator to not give a shit about gerrymandering?
I was just I was just
Isn't
gonna,
it just like a senator?
I was hoping you would see me putting up my hand, not to disagree in the sense that, aren't I diplomatic? In the sense that we have to deliver something immediately that affects everybody's cost of living. Like, I really believe that.
Yeah.
However, the pace at which we work matters. And we cannot talk about the gerrymandering and the Voting Rights Act in ways that are, there are people across this country who are going to have less of a vote than even what the founders put into the Constitution, right? And so I think we've got to be really clear that this is not a year two thing. We actually have to have a very quick, and I don't think Brian was saying that, I just think we have to be very quick at what we get done, and we have to make sure that those structural things are at the top, because they are affecting massive amounts of Black and brown people who are literally getting their votes stolen away from them. And we are not a democracy if we don't allow people, you know, with Black and brown skin to vote.
Pero ¿por qué no los dos? Why can't we be pushing a minimum wage increase vote and at the same time do the anti-gerrymandering bill? Like, we have multiple.
You have to pick one.
Yeah, why do we have to pick one?
That's
the
right,
craziest
and they're
part.
all written.
This actually did happen, like, during when I was there. Like, oh, we got to do HR 1 first, and then we'll go. We're like, why? Why can't we be going at the same time? And then maybe we talk more about minimum wage. And then gerrymander, it's the craziest effing thing. You know, Donald Trump has been able to clap it so much because they had laws written even before they got into office through Project 2025, right? We should be ready with Project 2029, which is like, as soon as we get in there, these are the things we're gonna pass. So then we're not in, like, you know, what happened with the ACA, what happened with everything else. Like, we're in there for months and months talking about a compromise bill that we're compromising among ourselves. And then the American public is wondering, like, why the hell aren't you guys doing anything? I am hurting right now when all we have to do is pass a couple simple bills they should have already pre-agreed to. So that's what I'm saying. Like, we should do the gerrymandering, anti-gerrymandering bill at the same time, and you're running like a, you know, pro-worker, family bill, and just let them all go and just move them as fast as possible.
I do wonder, just to actually follow up instead of making a snide remark about you not wanting gerrymandering at the top of your list. Just because this week we saw 8 million Californians come out on the issue of gerrymandering. Like, I am old enough to remember my career in television when it was like, don't do segments on gerrymandering because nobody knows what the fuck you're talking about. And now it's like you can have an off-year election with nobody on the ballot and 8 million Californians will come out to do something that is, you know, counter to everything that Democrats have been told is the right thing. And to me, that you know, is an exhibition of the sophistication of the American public, how engaged they are in efforts to curb democracy and representative democracy. And I wonder if you think the landscape has changed at all a little bit on that front when you think about issues of democracy in the sort of post-Trump era.
Yeah, I think so, but I don't think it takes away the basic sort of, and this is tactics, right?
Yeah.
This is the basic tactical point, which is even as these things become more understandable, more talked about among normal people, all of that is true, and I don't think we should run away from that either on the policy or the politics. I'm just saying that it is not a trivial thing that no matter my temptation to talk about the courts, which I made a mistake to do the first time, but
your first answer.
No matter all of our collective temptation to talk about the things that are, frankly, that we think are more important in the end, right, in the sweep of history, that again, people vote for you for their reasons, not yours, and I do think it matters very much that we collectively have the discipline to say, yes, I'm going to fight against gerrymandering. Yes, we're going to do democracy reforms. And to your point, Jamie Raskin and others and Dick Blumenthal and Sheldon Whitehouse are going to think about how to constrain a future executive from doing a lot of these unlawful things, or at least un-American things that seem to be between the lines of where the statutes and the Constitution permits. All of that is super essential. I just think that if we want to really respect the voter, and some of this is about that, as much as it is about people's material condition, it's like there was just a sense that it was a bunch of privileged people talking about a bunch of stuff that was not relatable. And I think Ruben has been, not to do all the senator stuff where we kiss each other's ass, but Ruben.
Trust me, I won't.
But Ruben has been, I think, a real breath of fresh air in terms of his laser focus on like people he knows, people he still hangs out with. And we have to basically stay there with people, even if our temptation is to get into, you know, my housing reform bill or my next climate action. All of that is all enabled by our singular focus on, you're just paying too much for everything, and we're going to be laser focused on fixing that. So I don't think this is either or. I think it matters the sequence in which we do it. And then we may be passing a bunch of gerrymandering reforms, and we may find out that that is compelling for people in this room and not for the rest of the public, and that's okay, right? Like, winning is the thing, and that's what this is about.
I have to ask a question that may seem Manchin-esque. But is there, you know, the hiss is in the audience. Don't say his name, he'll appear in a cloud of smoke. Much respect to you, Senator, wherever you are.
Still alive.
I know, I just meant like in the world. I meant in the world. I know he's alive. I saw him 2 weeks ago in person. Is there a space where you could envision, either in the House or the Senate, working with the White House on something? And if so, what would that be? Just like stunned. The faces went blank.
Oh, no, I mean, like, look, if the White House comes to me right now and says, Ruben, I heard you want to do $20 an hour minimum wage increase, I would do it.
Okay, wait, okay, fine, yes, of course.
What do you mean, okay, fine? You literally asked me. And I'm
no. I mean, like, in the world of Earth One, where we know the priorities of this White House in particular, is there any issue where you see common ground? And you can say no. I do wonder, like, have there been moments? I know I'm asking a lot, but
before the last 9 months, 10 months happened, you know, we thought antitrust might be a place where, you know, we have built bipartisan relationships. We've passed, a whole package of antitrust bills around big tech. Josh Hawley and I have been on the same page on a whole bunch of things.
Unusual.
And so I think, and I think the other one was probably around FISA and civil liberties. But that's not how this administration, like, they put a couple of good people in, but what they're doing now is destroying every regulation that existed to take on all of the big companies. And, they're even destroying, like, not only have they destroyed the CFPB, but they actually are reversing a whole bunch of settlements that the CFPB and lawsuits that had been settled for companies that were bilking American consumers, big banks, others, and they are just getting rid of the settlement. Like, they're literally getting rid of all of that. So we've been trying to figure out how to talk about that in a way that people see what's happening, because, it's a bit wonky. These were things that were settled under the Biden administration. So I don't know. I'm having a hard time thinking of one. I'm sorry,
housing,
Alex.
for sure.
Housing.
So I've been a big advocate for using federal land, not national park land, not beautiful, but land, like, federal vacant land, and keep it under federal control, but build housing on it, because it's exempt from zoning laws. And so you can't have the NIMBYs coming in and stopping, high density housing. And, one of the ideas that we're working on is, for example, this is not obviously going to happen anytime soon, but, like, anytime that, we have a new post office being built, is that the first floor will be the post office. Above that's going to be a bunch of affordable condos that you sell to, young families, right? And I, started when this administration started about talking about that, but then they went totally overboard, and they basically wanted to sell, like, beautiful land in the middle of, like, forest land, and that's not what we need. And what ends up happening is that land ends up getting sold to, like, really, really rich developers, and it's not really affordable housing. It ends up being, chateaus for rich people, and they always end up taking the land that is closest to the urban areas, which means if you're poor and you want to go out to, I don't know if you guys whoever's a Westerner here, you understand what I'm saying. Like, if you want to go out to the nearest trail, you're going to have to go out further and further because the most valuable land is the one that's closest to the city. So that's why when they started coming with their idea, I was like, well, that's not the way we want to go. But, that could have been an approach. And there is a lot of federal land within these dense urban areas and federal buildings that we should be knocking down right now and just rebuilding high-density housing and giving it to people under the age of 40, selling people under the age of 40. And if this administration did something like that, I would be 100% helping out with that.
Kids Off Social Media Act.
Yeah, that's a good one.
There's really no, in my view, there is no positive use case for a 12-year-old to be on TikTok or Instagram or anything else. And I think, but Pramila's really, I think, got to the fundamental point, which is like we're still in a place where that is at least theoretically possible on a bipartisan basis. But what ends up happening, and hopefully it won't happen on this one, is that it's really just a bludgeon for them to like hammer their political enemies and make trades that are kind of like off the balance sheet and have nothing to do with the legislation here in the middle. So I'm going to stay in there on that bill with my eyes wide open that if this ends up getting through, it'll be the exception.
I just want to ask you one more question before we wrap it up. And that is, we have a president and a party that have expressed a willingness to do away with basically the Constitution and all norms. There's a real question about whether they cede power in 2026 and or 2028. And that sort of begs the question. You have prominent conservatives saying, we need to make Democrats the permanent minority party. They're no longer the opposition party. We need to gerrymander full tilt and deny them the opportunity to ever gain the majority again, right? And that is not fear-mongering. That's like maybe the plan. So that raises a question, like, if you were to retain the majority once again, and you're fighting not just against the Republican Party, but the forces of autocracy, should Democrats go to whatever lengths possible, including not sunsetting those gerrymandered districts in California or in Illinois or in Virginia, keeping them in place for maybe decades to come in order to retain a fairer map for Democrats and allow them to retain control of the House, or doing, taking other steps to sort of better cement a Senate majority? Should that be on the table? Is it important enough for democracy, for Democrats, to do whatever they can to retain the majority at all costs?
Look, I'm not running to be the executive director of Common Cause, and God bless them for their view about democracy, but we are in different times. So I just think we need to maintain the position that everything is on the table as long as autocracy is on the table. And if the Republican Party kind of normalizes over time, if the fever breaks when Donald Trump is no longer on the ballot, then we can recalibrate. But until then, we just have to gerrymander back, right? We just have to fight back in the ways that they are fighting us. And I think there's almost no one left in the Democratic Party who's still on their high horse about procedural bullshit. Like, this is the only procedural stuff that we should be that maintain fidelity to is the Constitution and laws of the United States. But if anyone is talking about norms still, I encourage them to wake up.
I agree. I mean, I think that we're just in a... He's so surprised. Have I been hard on you? I'm so sorry. It's my empathetic self coming out. I just think that we're in these really unprecedented times. I mean, I was in Chicago doing a shadow hearing on immigration. We had 19 members of Congress come from all over the country. And I have to tell you, I have never in my life seen what I saw there. Never. And, I came to this country at 16 years old by myself, because this was the shining place on the hill. And because this was the place that had figured out something really, really unique, which is this incredible tie to our immigrant identity, as up and down as it's been, as crazy as it's been. And because we were this very unique place in the world where you could have that happen. And I think that what we're seeing now, I really do think, is fascism, is authoritarian takeover of institutions. We teach something called Resistance Lab. It's an online course. We've trained more than 16,000 people in all 50 states about how democracies fall. And I think we just have to be real about the fact that that's happening. And it's not that we have to talk about it every single day. Like, I think we have to be a party that is not just an opposition party. We need to be a proposition party. And we have to propose how we're going to make people's lives better, because that is the ultimate answer to fascism and to authoritarianism. And so if we can do that and do it quickly, I think we will have a much better shot at making sure that we continue to win elections. Do I think that that means we're not going to need to do anything to make sure that we continue to be able to do that? Especially depending on what's coming at us, right? Are people organizing to take down state elections? What's happening? I don't know. And so I just think everything does have to be on the table, and we just have to remember how deeply dire the situation is and how incredibly hopeful we need people to be. Otherwise, that hopelessness and powerlessness become tools of the oppressor. And so that's the work we have to do, is to create real hope, not like false hope, not like we're promising things and then we're not going to do it and you're going to vote for us and we're not going to deliver anything. No, but like real plan for what we're going to do. Our Project 2029, like we have we're doing that now for the House, right? Because we need to have it for next November so that we go into this January and we have a plan, with or without the Senate. And so I just think it's really... No, I just mean if we don't come on. There is only one of me up here. Did you notice that? I mean, last I checked, there are 435 House members and only 100 senators, but there's only one House member up here. But I think we've got work to do, and I can't wait to do it with you all.
I mean, I think for those of us that we're in the military and really in the military understand this term, there's escalation of force. And I think we have to calibrate, like the smart word that Ryan said, everything we do to the escalation of force. So if you see them continuing to move down these autocratic paths, then we have to match that. And then once we start seeing it, turn down and move down, then we can start coming back down, right? So that means we gerrymander to block their gerrymandering. Okay, has things gotten better? Okay, now let's go to an even playing field that is more reminiscent of what we think of is the best of the Constitution, right? But if they continue to be assholes, then we have to match them, right? It's just that simple until we win. And then once we win, then we can figure out, like, how do we get back to a normal space in this country that where this country has been in.
All right, warriors against the assholes. Senator Brian Schatz, Congressman Pramila Jayapal, Senator Ruben Gallego, thank you guys so much.